Welcome to Earful of Dirt, bringing you the latest Major League Rugby news, views, and abuse. Now here are your hosts, Aaron, Dan, and Victor.
Well, how's it going, everyone? It seems I am going to fly solo with Corey for a while. Dan sends his regrets. New York Rugby Club had a match yesterday, so he is recovering by attending Lion King Live with his girlfriend. So Victor is going to be a bit late, so he should join us later in the podcast. Let's hit the rundown.
Victor probably has an excuse. It is his birthday, so we're going to cut him some slack.
Yeah, so it's his birthday. Not a big deal. I'm not, he's not getting any demerits for not showing up. Dan definitely is getting demerits for going to watch The Lion King instead of talking about rugby. So now on to the rundown. Combines. Big stuff. So otherwise, and then we're going to talk about other ways teams will eventually add players and are currently adding players. Where's all that international talent? If, Victor shows up, he'll tell us a lot about the Spanish and also South American talent that's out there. Questions from Bob, latest rumors, our brand new feature, which I think Corey has pulled up a tweet of the week for that.
Absolutely.
And, hold on to your mouthpieces and scrum caps because we're about to go. For all those that hanging out at home, I'm Aaron, and let's hit up combines. So Houston just finished their second of their two combines. This makes me think that teams were allotted two combines, and Houston, being a brand new club and not having any foundation, needed to get in there and get it quick. But just to give you an idea of the kind of talent available that is around, that is local to Houston, Lethadius Hill Jr. ran 4 electronically timed 40-yard dashes. First one was a 4.35. Second one was a 4.27, which legitimately broke the electronic timer. Then he ran a 4.41. Came back, rested, ran a 4.32. So as far as talent is there, there's some fast folks in Houston. So going into who they've signed so far, from Combine 1, we've got Craig Whitlock, played at Houston Athletic Rugby Club, also played for 3 years out at Nelspruit in the Republic of South Africa. Then we have Marcel Harrison, fighting out of Lone Star Rugby Club, playing for Phil Beck. He's a former safety at Sam Houston State. So there you go. Division I talent right there, So Combine 2, this is where it gets juicy. The first signing from Combine 2 is Colton Pedersen, also fighting out of Lone Star Rugby Club. Started playing rugby with his brother at the Kuala Lumpur International School. So he's been playing rugby, I think, for 12 years. He's one of those guys that has a high rugby IQ, has been playing a very long time, came through the Woodlands Youth Rugby Club, then played at Texas Tech, and has also previously played with the Woodlands Rugby Club and the Dallas Harlequins. The second signing last week was Lethadius Hill Jr. He has not played rugby as far as I can tell, but his father, Lethadius Hill Sr., is a legend. But he was also, if you're, listening in from Texas, you all know who Thad Hill Sr. is if you're well past my generation, which is Generation Y, the woke generation, it being what it is. But Thad Hill Sr. is an Eagle Sevens player, was an Atlanta Sevens player under Emil Senias. So Thad Hill Jr., I mean, the story around him is he's just got, he's got rugby in his blood. His dad was also a great wing. Thad Jr., he played Prairie View and Tarleton State. He was the leading running back in the Texas United Semi-Pro League this last year. And, I think he's going to be an amazing wing player. He can catch, and he's just – I feel it's going to be very tough to stop, even at the international level, running at, that pace. And then the next, I wouldn't say Connor Mills was a combine signing, but he was at both combines. He's a fly half, previously playing for the Woodlands and Houston Athletic. He was the captain of the Texas A&M Rugby Club, was a men's junior All-American, and was a two-time high school All-American out of St. Thomas High School. The fourth signing from this week, there's more, right? So we got Kieran Farmer, just graduated high school. He's also a fly half. Started playing rugby in Azerbaijan for the Tisa Titans. Spent last summer with the Hawke's Bay Academy in New Zealand, playing for the Napier Old Boys. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, he's an Eagle Impact Rugby Academy select, so he's in the national system. The high school All-Americans coach, Salty Thompson, runs EIRA. And as far as if you want to know about his speed, he did run track at Woodlands High School. So I think, he spent 14 months with Ed Cosner. He's a super rugby champion, strength coach, NRL champion strength coach. He coaches the Franks brothers of the All Blacks. He does all their strength programming. He's been a part of the San Antonio Spurs. So his resume as a strength coach is so. Kieran Farmer spent 14 months with him getting strong so that he could go down and ball. I think I think another year with him and eating a lot, he'll be very strong and he'll add a bunch of weight to his frame and he'll be ready to play fly half at the international level in a couple of years. So the next guy we have is another fast guy, but his work rate is intense. It's Willie Perry Jackson, also a Hark prospect. He's a back, previously played both for the Seattle Saracens and Lamar University Rugby. The thing that stood out about him was he put in some good work in Combine number 1, but he came back and ran the Bronco, which is 1,200 meters of total work. And the Bronco, I need to get someone like that really knows. I've never done this, workout. He runs the Bronco in 4 minutes and 38 seconds. So that's fast, and that really tests your endurance and your speed at the same time. Then we got Andres Diaz, another Hark prospect. He's a hooker out of Texas A&M Rugby, also out of St. Thomas Rugby. He was a men's All-American, men's junior All-American, a Texas Rugby select, and he just so happens to be the best friend of Connor Mills. So let's think about that.
It sounds like we got a lot of good options coming in. Once again, and Houston has been doing it right. They've been getting out there. They've been talking with the community and really pulling in the top of the top of the top of the clubs in the area. So tell me a little bit in your experience, Aaron. I know, there's been a lot of talk about where the the sleeping giant is in American football. You got a lot of crossover players and stuff like that. And it does seem like there's at least 1 or 2 guys here that are coming out, especially Thad Hill Jr. Is coming from a football background. So kind of what's your experience? What's your thoughts on the interchange and switching between sports?
I think, because of how physical rugby is, that the switch isn't going to be hard. The difference is, passing the ball. It's like the need for ball skills across every athletes because, I mean, for the most part, offensive lineman, been an offensive lineman, been a defensive lineman, been a linebacker. You're not really a ball skills guy. Whereas your props and your hooker, you basically got guys that are size of offensive guards and centers, but they got to be able to catch and they got to be able to be relatively talented runners with the ball. So I think that teaching those things to, American football players and creating rugby athletes is going to be very important. But as you see with what Houston is putting together so far, you've got that mix of high-end rugby talent and high-end athlete, which I think plays more into what people want to see. They want to see this game played fast. I mean, people talk about rugby IQ. Rugby IQ does matter, but if we're playing a very slow game, it's going to be very hard to bring people in, I think, to capture that fan base, whereas they're used to ball movement of basketball and it being going up and down the floor fast, the ball movement of spread offenses in football. And that's what the best way I can explain certain types of football is the spread offense is champagne rugby. You get everyone gets the ball, it goes out wide, and you try to score, as much. And that's what I'm seeing here with Houston is they're putting together huge pack. And then they're bringing back all these athletes in the back line that can just burn you. So that's what's really going to be important to see is integrating that American top-end athlete into a system that uses their skills best and gets them on the field fast, and then also teaches them rugby skills. So that's what I'm thinking. As far as combines are concerned, I've never had to run the Bronco. You don't really see that a lot unless you're playing at the top end of, I would say, D1 rugby for the most part. In D2 rugby, you're not really doing that. Strength and conditioning is really a voluntary thing. I mean, if every guy was serious about the gym, I think the quality down to D3 rugby would be a lot different. But just converting the American football athlete into rugby athletes, or not even just them, but also basketball, because basketball is a fluid motion sport, so that really transfers over a lot. As long as we have technical coaches, I don't see the transition being that much of an issue overall.
Now, do any of the other teams have combines coming up?
Yes. So I know that New Orleans is going to have one, maybe two combines. They have not released the date yet. I've also heard that New Orleans is supposed to come forth with some names on their roster. We'll talk about, I think it's four guys on their roster during this podcast that I know are down there. But the one I know that's going to happen is the first of the Austin Elite Combines, and that's on the 14th of October. So check out AustinEliteRugby.com and Austin Elite Rugby on Facebook for more details so you can apply and get in there. So, nice. You want to play rugby professionally in this country, MLR is the current pathway. And I think if you go out there and test well, you'll score yourself a solid contract. And also, if it's on the lower end, they have a network. So some of this is going to be part-time players. Some of these guys, even some former Eagles, they're working, I would say, higher end but flexible jobs that allow them to still put in 4 to 5 hours of rugby a day, which is important if we're going to have some part-timers and some full-timers.
Now, you mentioned before we started that you're going to be traveling next week and you might be stopping down to Texas yourself. Are you going to be trying out for the Huns anytime soon, or the Elites anytime soon?
The Elites. No, I will not be trying out for the Austin Elite. I will be in Austin 2 weekends this fall, and I think I will try to make my second trip a bit longer so I can swing down to Houston and run into Rook and run into Big Ed at the gym and maybe work out with Jackson Slater. And but I will be in Austin this week. If things work out, I will be able to sit down and have a chat with Richard Osborne, the managing partner. I wanted to talk to Laffy, but he's getting ready to leave and go back to South Africa. I think I'll just miss Thierry Dupont. So if things don't work out, I will get a call scheduled with Thierry this week so that we can bring out some more information and give them the publicity that they're due from us. Because we just, talked a ton about Houston because of all the actions they've done. But, Austin's been doing a lot of work that hasn't necessarily been talked about. But I know that this last week they just had a big meeting with a corporate partner, apparently that's local to Austin, that they talked about on their Facebook page. A corporate partner just joined their Captains Club. So if you're in the Austin area and you want to support rugby, join the Captains Club. Be part of the growth. Shout
out to business folks. Get in now. And who knows, you could be the next Mark Cuban. So tell me a little bit about the possibility of, we've been hearing about a draft. I know that was a rumor early on. And I know we talked about it pretty extensively on Reddit. Is that still being discussed around the MLR community? Is that something that would be helpful?
So, where we're at in the American rugby space for the moment is kind of a weird spot. I don't think we have a player base that would support a draft. I think, many of the folks that came in and are sources on Reddit and have, reliable sources to talk and, basically are saying, hey, there's going to be this. I don't think there was a draft in the traditional sense. And I don't think there was a reallocation of players based on the fact that it's like, how many players – it's like, hey, are we going to have a draft? Yes, no, maybe so. But I think for the most part, it was all about foreign players. And I think all the foreign players that applied through the system, because we haven't heard about all of them. We've only heard a few, like John Mills and O'Shea Kalinisau. I think that the idea was to have 5 foreign players on the match day roster, and I think 8 or 9 foreign players on the training squad of about 30 to 35 players. And I think most of those guys got, I would say, assigned by the league office, but there was probably a draft for all of these guys. We haven't heard about them all. We haven't heard about them all for Houston necessarily. I think that you could say Rook Windsor was the first one. He's also going to double as a player coach in their system, but they got O'Shea Kalinisau, and then Dallas got John Mills. And I think some of these people that got assigned were capped Eagles, like say Kyle Sumsian, who moved down to Houston. I don't know if that's a fact, because if you look him up, he also works for BNSF Railway as a project engineer. So I think it's a bit of it. I think they assigned foreign players. That's how I think the draft worked. And we haven't. Otherwise, we would have heard where some of the top graduating seniors were going because of the draft and stuff like that. So I don't think it was a traditional draft. That's my opinion.
Well, and related to that, it looks like we've got some news of some signings this week. So I'll just go run through a few of these and slaughter some last names if you don't mind. Sounds like we've got now. So this is one that I think you kind of hit on Reddit. Alex Chizowski. Chikowski. Okay, he is USA South Panther, an all-Army lock, and looks like he's with NOLA Gold. So that was the one where the press release was posted, and then it was pulled down pretty soon after that. But it seems like it is going to happen, or it did happen, and they're not ready to release it. Do you have any more information on that?
I mean, it was sort of sent via the burner email, and from a good source. It was like, hey, I'm going to send you something, and I got it. And then like the link didn't work. Went to a blank page, but then I searched on the it's called prlog.com, and like the link still existed. So I went on the Wayback Machine. Wayback Machine, it wasn't up there long enough for the Wayback Machine to get it, but on Google Cached pages, it was still there. So you can see the press release on our Facebook page and on our Twitter, and it talks about them. So it just I know that NOLA has signed players. I know that for a fact. They said they were going to release them in their own due time. So I'm thinking the agency, which represents Tchaikovsky, jumped the gun a little bit.
We also have news of Bobby Johns. He's a center, a former LSU AA player, and All-American. Okay. And I'm talking baseball stuff now. And it doesn't say where he's headed.
Well, I mean, he's a These are all. Oh, yeah. So in the notes, those three are the first four are all NOLA Gold players. So,
all righty.
Just unscrew that one.
So Cameron Falcon, also he's a hooker, and also an LSU All-American, and he also was. Spent time with, it looks like, Ohio, the Aviators, and the Express during pro rugby.
Yeah, so Cam Falcon is in the Eagles system. He, as part of being selected on the All-American camp, he got to spend time in the Taranaki Academy in New Zealand, and he just left. He just came back from playing, not in the Shoot Shield, but one of the competitions down in Australia. So he's got some high-level rugby experience from some Tier 1 nations. And one of the primary backers is an old-time NorFC guy called Tim Falcon. He's a big lawyer. He's one of the primary backers for the NOLA Gold. And, I mean, I'm not saying – there's no – don't say there's nepotism, because his son, Cameron Falcon – can play. I'm just like, it's just an opportunity to not play in Houston or Austin. He just gets to stay home. So he can play. There's no reason why he's not going to be a first choice hooker in this competition amongst the 8 teams that we got.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you have the opportunity to play at home, why wouldn't you? Back in June, we also had Connor Bertrand, and he's a loose forward, men's All-American, 2-time MJAA with the Austin Blacks.
Men's Junior All-American.
Junior All-American. And then he's played with the Austin Blacks, Denver Barbarians, and the Dallas Harlequins. So it sounds like he's got some really solid club experience, and we'll probably be making an impact pretty quickly for NOLA.
Connor Bertrand's a very good player. Another player that's in the Eagles system. He, made 2 appearances for the Junior All-Americans in U20s, and then was in a men's All-American selectee. Played for 3 high-level clubs in the Harlequins, the Barbarians, and the Blacks. He moved to New Orleans to be a teacher, so he'll be one of your part-time guys. But again, high-quality player. So,
And then finally, coming out of Glendale with the Raptors, we've got, and this is going to be a tough one. It's Nick Kwaneski. Kwaneski?
I think it's Kwaneski. I think it's Kwaneski.
Kwaneski.
I don't know. When you've got so many syllables in a foreign language, I'll butcher that. I'll make the correction next podcast because I understand I'm not like Warren and Preston in my great research of names like they are, but we'll get that fixed.
They do a great job every time, just killing it. So Nick is a tight head prop, and looks like he was a junior All-American as well. He's coming off a knee injury, so he forewent his senior year to kind of get healed up, and so we're hoping for good things and good health for him coming in to the Raptors system.
Yeah, he's local to me because Grand Canyon is like a couple stones throw. He's a very good player. One of the matches, I think it was a Junior World Trophy qualifier from a couple of years ago, is on YouTube. I need to find it again. Very strong player. One of the things that makes him very unique is his fitness. I know he's coming off a knee injury, but he'll have that back pretty fast. He was a cross-country runner as a freshman in high school and then decided to become a football player and then became a rugby player. And he's very strong, tackles well. It'll be great to see him even go to another level in a professional environment, just working every day on rugby. And also I understand that he's got everything set up so he can finish his degree through GCU's distance learning program.
Well, that's an interesting path to follow because I've known a decent number of cross-country kids, and they're usually the skinniest kids in high school. Yeah, they're fast and they're good runners, but they are not physical.
Yeah, so I guess he must have hit a growth spurt and was like, "I'm out of this. I don't know. I've got no clue on how you go from endurance runner to football player." I think now, Victor's coming up. Maybe.
Yeah, I think he is. Let's see if he's going to jump on with us.
So, but yeah, as far as 4 players for NOLA and one for Glendale. Glendale's pretty much got their roster set. It's going to be interesting. I haven't seen anything about combines for them. But they did announce their U20 Academy. And a question was asked, are parents going to be paying for this coaching? And I think it's a mixture of no. I don't necessarily think they're going to be earning a wage, but I think there's going to be a lot of favors in kind. And part of what was explained as part of the U20 Academy was that they have to they're going to go into like either do school part-time or apprenticeships part-time, which reminds me of how the Mitre 10 works in New Zealand, because there's one day a week where all of the athletes have to focus 4 hours on their interests, like business interests, where it could be art, could be plumbing, could be, coding, could be mathematics, and pursue, external education. So that's kind of cool.
And we're still waiting for Victor to get logged in here, but I'm sure he'll be coming along shortly. So the last point on kind of getting players into the system ahead of the start of the season, I think we want to talk about is the idea of central contracting. And this is something that's been floating around it for a while as well. And so can you kind of talk me through what we're hearing as far as how the league is going to be set up at the business end of things, how players are going to get paid?
So I wasn't sure about this one until recently. I thought it made a little bit of sense, but not nearly as much because of the whole point of like decentralized command, franchises running franchises. And more, I would say more NHL, NFL, probably NBA model. The centralized contracting bit is similar to the MLS. Everyone gets paid by the league. So I'm thinking what happens here is all of the teams pay the players via the league. So the teams are required to pay the wages to the league, and then the league will distribute them. And this isn't a problem. This is more of a best practice, because what we saw with Pro is Doug stopped paying people. And this gets them out of some possible hot waters because of World Rugby Regulation 4. And Reg 4 is kind of a big deal. It requires you to pay your players. It requires to pay your contracts. And, it's important to make sure all professional athletes get paid. And, Doug not only stopped paying players, but he canceled their contracts when they still had like 5 months to go for off-season pay, because all of the contracts were set up for, rather than for like in-season stuff, but for 12 months for some reason or other.
So I guess paying people is pretty important, I would say, especially for livelihoods of people, as well as just professionalism in general. You don't not pay your bills.
Yeah. Preston asked me this when I was talking to him earlier this week. And then he said earlier last week, and then on the next podcast came out, he said the same exact quote. It was like, how many bridges are we going to burn before a professional league gets off the ground here? And I think this is one of those bridges that you don't allow yourself to get burned. You don't allow it to be burned here. It's saying that in a different context than how he said it on the last version of last episode of Red, White, and Black Eye. So.
Yeah, and I think that was partially also just talking about the appearance or the impression of professionalism in America, kind of how it, with repeated failure over and over again, it tends to suffer. I mean, people look at us from overseas, they say, well, it's not a good bet to come to America to play ball. And we don't want that. We want to be, world champions. We got to work towards that.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's just there was the first version of the North American Soccer League, and Victor says he's setting up. So first version of the North American Soccer League failed, late 70s, early 80s. Then we didn't have, any form of professionalism for a little over 10 years, I think, maybe 12 years. And what rebooted professionalism in the United States in soccer was the World Cup in 1994. And I think, some of our friends, like the Grant Coles of the world, Tony Riddell's, Matt McCarthy's, they understand the need to host a Rugby World Cup, because the infusion of capital to the union, let alone the economic impact, is very significant. What was it? Last Rugby World Cup, just on tickets alone, the RFU grossed £250 million. So that doesn't include all the food and merch that was sold. They own Twickenham, so they make a mint every time they host a match of any kind or event in Twickenham, and then whatever percentage of food and beverages that they made off of the other tests that were held in the other stadiums, and then whatever went to World Rugby, because I think it was a world record. Like, it was just, I think it was double the payout from 2 World Cups before. I'm not sure. I don't quote me on that statement, but it was a very, very significant payout to the host union and to, everyone else who participated and made it far. So it's, things like that are important.
Well, and of course, next year we do have the Sevens World Cup coming to the U.S. for men's side. So, and I've heard that described by some folks as kind of a test run to see how America does with managing and putting on an event like that. So I would think at least folks are starting to pay attention to our unions up here, and that's a good sign.
Yeah, definitely. It's just, got to move forward, and people need to take risks. And some of the big money doesn't want to take risks without other people taking risks before they do. So,
well, it's funny you mentioned risk. So let's talk a little bit about the financial stress tests that we've got going on and what happened in Dallas. So talk me through that.
As confirmed by a separate source, I sort of played on this a little bit last week, talking about, things that occurred to Dallas that say, hey, we should watch out for them. But confirmed this twice. There was a bond payment that was required about almost a month ago. I call it the stress test. You had to pay it in full by that day. And from what I'm told is Dallas didn't pay it. And what that meant, didn't really know at that time. And then got a few more details on it that weekend or 2 weekends ago. And then last week it was broken on the MLR subreddit by a separate source that isn't, the four of us. And I've never met this dude. It's just guy's name is, shout out to Rugger Rob for breaking the story. So Rugger Rob, you can submit questions next time. We'll very happily try to answer them. And so hey, Dallas is out, San Diego's in, and I will say Dan guaranteed that San Diego was in based on, our own detective work. One of the guys connected to the former pro franchise, which we've sort of connected to this pro franchise and this new professional venture in San Diego, who's also involved in the NASL franchise for soccer in San Diego, is Bob Watkins, who is a member of the USA Rugby Hall of Fame board. And I think he's a member of the USA Rugby Hall of Fame as a team manager. Don't quote me on that, but he is heavily involved with USRF. And so, his ties to the San Diego rugby community and on back and all the movers and shakers are all there. So, well, and guess what? San Diego made their bond payment. Dallas did not. What that meant was, somebody asked about Minneapolis and, Dallas saying next year, not this year. No, it was, I firmly believe that there was that Dallas is just going to be let go, and there's going to be someone that needs to come in from outside of that specific rugby community and to kiss the babies and shake the hands like the strikers have. And it might be, local money, but it's not going to be Phil Cam as far as I can tell. What that says to me is, what about Mike Ford? Well, if you dig around, it seems like Coach Ford is looking for work in England. And John Mills, he was going to be a player coach on loan from the London Scottish. So I just think he's not coming unless he gets reassigned to another franchise in the league. I think he's just going to stay with the London Scottish. And as far as the bond payment is concerned, the figure I was quoted was $250,000. I think that is equal to an eighth. I mean, when we get Commissioner Benson on, he can either tell me or not. But I think it's either a sixth or an eighth of what the buy-in was. So if it's an eighth, the buy-in's $2 million. If it's a sixth, the buy-in was $1.5 million. I think it's more than, I think it's less than a quarter percentage, 25% of what the buy-in is, because all signs point to excess of $1.5 million as the buy-in.
It's very interesting, and it's a lot of money being thrown around.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were a lot of stress tests last year in the MRC with the amount of travel that Glendale did, with the amount of travel that Utah did, with the amount of travel that Austin did, and the amount of travel that Nor FC was supposed to be able to do, and they ended up, not doing. Which, one of our sources from Baton Rouge is like, hey, I just talked to the man, and he says they're a go. They've made all their payments, and they are paid up. So Aggie Rugger 2010, shout out to you. He's a fellow moderator on Reddit. And to be honest, my response to him was that was just sort of banter and to, I would say, cover some stuff that I said about Dallas, because I was trying to make sure all of our ducks were in a row before we broke news on that, which is why we didn't break news on that. Because the reality is if we're all old school guys when it comes to journalism, and we need to, make sure we have real sources out there. And yes, I understand another Reddit user isn't 100%, but I couldn't say, hey, my guy told me this. I needed it. I always need to be able to confirm it from another location before I can make analysis. Because one, although I trust my sources that I talk to all the time, it's more about protecting our relationships. So if, we talk to a team and they say off the record, it's going to be off the record. That's just the reality of it.
And that's journalism 101. And I know, we both come from a background where we have some experience in that world. And I think that's very important to us. And, the other thing I would say is just let's see where it goes. Sometimes you have to take a wait and see attitude rather than jumping in with the first thing you hear, because a lot of times you'll be wrong. The other thing I'd just like to give a shout out to Rugger Rob, kind of like you mentioned, especially back when we were all on the pro train last year. He was coming in with a lot of really solid material, and he's actually the one over on the pro subreddit who was one of the first ones to tell us that the league was out of money and that Doug had stopped paying his players. So I think he's definitely one that we like to listen to whenever he starts talking, and wish he would do more talking. So Rob, if you're listening, give us all your love.
Hey, Victor's here.
Welcome, my friend.
Oh, clap. Hope your birthday's good. Can you hear us? You good?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Hey, how are we doing, guys?
Hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, everyone. So sorry I came extremely late. My apologies.
So I guess Corey's about to hit our tweet of the week, and then we're going to knock off some news and rumors and banter a little bit and call it good.
Sounds like a plan. Everyone, hello, by the way. Sorry I'm kind of late, guys. You probably heard it's my birthday, so I was celebrating a little bit just now.
Well, we hope you had a good time, and we're happy to have you now. So let's talk tweet of the week, guys. So this is something just kind of we want to have fun with, and I think I'm going to try to talk Dan into doing it most weeks. It actually came out of a conversation we had offline over the week about Dan reading some tweets in last week's show and how much we absolutely loved it. So set up some rules for this, and here's how this is going to work. So each week we're going to bring you a tweet of the week. It has to come from Twitter. Has to be rugby related, with preference given to tweets from or about Major League Rugby. And it has to include emojis. And the emojis part is what's really important here. So this week we're going to actually take a series. We're going to honor a series of tweets, and this is coming out of the Strikers camp. And if you guys aren't following Houston Strikers, their social media presence is out of sight. They're doing things right on all levels, and it seems like they're really hitting their stride. So As we know, this week Houston's been hit with a pretty bad storm, something called Harvey. I'm not sure. I haven't really seen much news on it or anything. But some folks have been giving shouts out to the Strikers and to the city in general, just saying, hope you guys are okay, be safe, and all this. And Strikers have responded with a big thanks. And then they follow that up by saying, in emoji, thunderstorm, tornado, umbrella. So once again, the response from the Strikers has been thanks, thunderstorm, tornado, umbrella. I don't know what else you need to say. I think that pretty much takes care of it.
I think for Strikers social media follows, Rook Windsor, his Insta stories, good to go. Good to go. So if you want to get involved with following these dudes on social media and whatnot, Rook Windsor, he's a funny guy on Instagram Instagram stories, I'll tell you what. So.
And just a shout out real quick to Houston, to everybody down there, rugby or not. We're thinking about you guys and wishing you all the best as you're going through a tough time. And we know you're going to be back, and we know you're going to come back stronger than ever. So shout out to Houston. Be strong, Texas. We know you got this.
Definitely. Let's go, Houston.
So, yeah, real quick, we want to run through some rumors and some news bits. So let's talk about Austin Elites hiring Rick Medina. Victor, you want to tell us a little bit about him, about his resume, where he's coming from?
Sure, Mr. Medina. Let's see. Where do I start? Well, his resume, and, well, let's see. How do I put it? He's not super business savvy, and but definitely his experience is valuable to the new organization that we have right now. Overall, or according to the post excuse me. Sorry, guys. I just came in right now, like super far away. Sorry. Actually, you know what? Someone take the word for me, because I'm blanking out on Rick Medina.
All right. So, okay. Is his business savvy that you're impressed by?
Yes.
So it is his so valuable experience, digging a little deeper, great hire. I say good in my notes, but he's a great hire. And he just, if you go on the back of all these other retentions and hires that Major League Rugby has, he's another great media guy, sports marketing dude, local, and he's local to Austin. He's a Texas rugby legend on the field. He's a Spanish international, and he's also an Austin Black. So this guy, he's known to the Texas rugby community. He's good to go. And, it's pretty intense. I like it. And it's like I said, he's an Austin Black. So you have ties to both clubs in Austin with the Austin Elites for now. So I think it's going to be a great time.
Victor, you also we heard some news this week from Matthew Bressens. You want to fill us in on what's going on there?
Yes, this one I remember. So according to a post by a gentleman named Matthew Bressens, a club competing in MLR is considering all international players, and top players are going to be paid anywhere between $30,000 per season or more, and that includes airfares and assistance accommodations for these international players. Now, lesser-known younger players will get paid anywhere between $15,000 to $2,000 per season. Now, obviously, they are looking for American qualified players mostly, but they definitely do welcome internationals. Now, the club is looking for a director of rugby who will be paid anywhere between $70,000, and the contract will be ending in June of next year, 2018, with the option of renewal if possible.
Very good. And I know you'd also mentioned when we were talking last week about anything out of South America. So are you hearing about any players coming up to the U.S. from there, Victor? I know that's an area you're plugged into, a region that you pay attention to.
Well, yeah, well, I'm not South American, but I definitely do keep up with my Latin American rugby. Now, thus far, there's nothing coming out of Latin America in terms of players expecting to go into an MLR team. But I am expecting something probably next sometime. Probably maybe not the first season, but next season, because I was reading a couple of days ago about a new competition coming up in August 2018, which is the America's Rugby Championship B, which is going to be second division ARC pretty much, and that's going to be played by Mexico, Colombia, Paraguay, Trinidad and Tobago, maybe.
Viva Mexico!
Viva Mexico, definitely, Way. You know it, Way. And it's those 4 teams. Yeah, only those 4 teams. Yeah, those 4 are only going to be 4. It's not going to be 6 like the other one. But yeah, that's again Mexico, Colombia, Paraguay, and maybe TNT. Still not super sure if that's going to be the case or not. I do hope so, because in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago is the only team that you can say, you know what, they're really good. Personally, I would rather see Jamaica, because I definitely do like how the Crocodiles or the Crocs are coming up in recent seasons, mostly on the 7-side FIC teams. Unfortunately, not so much. I have noticed that their 13 team, the rugby league team, is actually moving a lot faster in terms of development than the union team, which is not something I'm happy about, because I do like my union. but it is what it is. But going back to the main topic, so I do hope that by this competition coming up next year, new players from those international sides will come into the MLR.
Fantastic. Well, we would absolutely love any talent that we can get a hold of for this league. Hey, Aaron, we've talked about going south. You're going to tell us something about what's going on up north, aren't you?
Yeah. So Brian Ray broke this story about the Ontario Arrows, and we keep talking about, how many teams do we get off with this? Just do we start the season with? Is there expansion? So the Ontario Arrows are a privately funded, I wouldn't say select side, but a privately funded venture separate from the Ontario Blues. The Ontario Blues is a side of select players funded by Rugby Ontario. And so what they have retained is the coaching staff of the Ontario Blues. It will be a semi-professional side, and I think it's going to be a proof of concept for them. We've talked about possibly, a Canadian side or 2 Canadian sides jumping into, Major League Rugby in 2019 or 2020. And I think this goes into expansion watch, because we've talked about San Francisco. We've talked about Rugby New York. And what was there was another side that I was talking about that was not a Canadian team. I forget. But there's 4. And then, some people have talked, Boston and Sacramento. I really haven't found anything. And I would think if Boston, the Mystics or whatnot, a club built around the powerful clubs in New England, you wouldn't have seen, Marchiera sign with Houston. But it's going to be interesting. They're going to do, I think it's 5 road trips to the United States. They're going to play Glendale. They're going to play Old Blue. It's going to be interesting to watch. It's going to be really cool. And then, if it financially works out, we've got a Canadian team in MLR, and, it really a cross-border competition in that essence will be really helpful to developing just North American rugby in general and help drive the rivalry that is the Can-Am series for us.
A rising tide raises all boats, as they say. So it's good to have quality competition, both North and South American. I think there's no doubt about that. It's been a well-trodden subject. A lot of people have talked about it over the years, but anything Canada can do to step it up, and we would absolutely love an MLR side up north as well as down south. Any place international. If we want a Mexican team, that would be pretty cool too. So,
Oh Lord, yeah.
So, Victor, you also posted on Reddit this morning, I think, about some rugby league news out of New York, but it may have an impact on MLR. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, guys. This morning I was checking what was happening with the Toronto Wolfpack because I like all forms of rugby, whether 15s or third teams, mostly union rather than league. But I was checking it this morning, and I noticed that the Toronto Wolfpack posted an article about a possible New York franchise coming up in 2020. Now, the article that I'm talking about was published by the Daily Mail, which comes out of the United Kingdom. And so I'm just going to read the top part really. It says, and I quote, "A New York team is set to join the Rugby Football League by 2020 with the aim of reaching Super League." Now, for those of you that do not know about Rugby League, Super League is the top division in England, and in England and France, because there is a French team called the Catalan Dragons. You could say it's almost like the Premier Rugby. Only thing is that you have another team from outside of England. So according to this, they're going to have a gentleman with the name of Mick Potter, who is a former Bradford and St. Helens coach. Both Bradford Bulls and St. Helens are some of the oldest teams in Super League. Bradford Bulls is actually the team where a famous English player came from, an English player that actually played in the 2015 Rugby World Cup, who went from rugby league to rugby union. You may know him better as Sam Burgess. Sam Burgess, unfortunately, could not really make it in the union world. He actually, when he left, actually my favorite team, the South Sydney Rabbitohs, let's go Rabbitohs, he ended up going to Bath Rugby. You may remember Bath Rugby is a place where the famous legend Dan Carlisle at one point in time was the captain of the team. So he went there for a season, well, it's supposed to be really 3 seasons. And according to players, they were really hyping up the fact that they were getting Burgess, that he was going to be the savior of the club. And keep in mind, at this time, Bath was going to a transition of many players retiring out of the professional game. And they were getting a couple of kids coming out of their academies, out of their academy, just one. And again, they really hyped up Burgess with plans of this and that. Unfortunately, his season didn't win the way they wanted it. That didn't stop Stewart, whatever his last name is, the guy that used to coach England, for getting Burgess into the English team. And as we all know, unfortunately, England lost their own tournament, unfortunately, against Wales, which, by the way, that game was great. And that's actually the game where I fell in love with a guy named Dan Biggard. Dan Biggard. God bless that man. But in any case, they're going to have, going back to the thing I talk about. So they're going to have, again, Mr. Mick Potter as the coach, apparently, of this rugby league side in New York City. Now, this comes out of the success of the Toronto Wolfpack, obviously coming out of Toronto. The CEO of the team, Eric Perez, who is, I guess, a distant cousin or uncle of mine. I've been told his family's from Venezuela, so we might be distant cousins. He apparently is really pushing the New York team, and he's going to be like one of the, you know what, if you open one in Toronto, you want to open one in New York. So that's so far the idea. We'll see what happens in the next 3 years, but I do hope we get this league team out of New York City. But of course, if this league team opens or scheduled to come out before a union team in New York City from MLR, you got that extra competition, which I'm not sure if it's extremely favorable, but you guys tell me.
Well, I mean, the Rugby Club New York website says coming 2019. So I don't know. You tell me, man.
Of course.
I mean, they say they say they're coming in 2 years, and if Rugby League says they're coming in 3 years, well, it's going to be partially about whoever sticks their foot in the oversaturated New York sports market. That's what I think.
You tell me. Let me tell you. But unfortunately, the thing is, in New York City, we have a lot of teams. Have you noticed that New York City is one of those few cities in the States that has more than one team? I think it's only us in Chicago that have that. Two baseball teams. We got two American football
New York and
teams.
Los Angeles.
And yes, LA, of course, that's the second biggest city.
Have like the two that have everything because like New York has two basketball teams, two soccer teams, two like.
Two baseball teams, I guess, because we got the Padres and
no, the Angels and the Dodgers.
The Angels and the Dodgers, which I should be talking about the Dodgers because I live in Brooklyn and we hate the Dodgers.
Padres are not in the same market.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm Dominican, but I'm not huge at baseball. I have to admit, I'm a fake Dominican sometimes. But yeah, guys, I'm not gonna deny it. I am a fake Dominican. You're gonna be hearing Rafael, one of our listeners, saying, "Yo, Victor, no, you're not a fake Dominican. I'm a fake Dominican because I live in California." But no, Rafael, I'm kidding, bro. No, you're a true Dominican, bro. I'm kidding. No, but seriously, guys, the Dodgers, freaking Dodgers, I freaking hate them. They had to go to the West Coast because the government didn't want to build another Ebbets Field for them. It's BS, but it's whatever. Anyways, going back to rugby.
Yeah, I think I think we got to hit questions from Bob.
Oh, yeah, guys, we're once again we've hit the hour mark and we're just flying past it. So appreciate everybody who's still tuning in and sticking with us. This is one of my favorite parts. So let's do questions from Bob. We're actually leading off with a question from Bob. So Bob Boberson off Reddit wants to know, is there going to be revenue sharing among the MLR teams a la the NFL?
Yes, as far as I know, yes, there will be revenue sharing. Broadcast deals and sponsorships will go into a pool, as we currently understand it. So yeah.
Well, I mean, if for all the guys on the board, if you're new to the Reddit board and you dig through it, as was broken by This is Texas Rugby, he stated like he spoke with the president of Golden Gate and was like, "Hey, are you joining this? If not, why not?" And it was like, "Hey, it doesn't." They said it doesn't fit our business model. Like, and I'm the kind of guy that doesn't really care about paying to watch amateur rugby. I'll go pay for parking if you have to go park somewhere to watch the playoffs, because I did that for Division III AZRU, RGRU playoffs on the west end of Phoenix. I paid $5 for parking, but you want to charge me like $10, $15 to go watch amateur rugby. It makes me wonder, as far as business models are concerned, but Golden Gate didn't want in. I would think they would make more money via revenue sharing than they make now if they wanted to launch a club. I think the real issue is either the development of their ground on Treasure Island, or maybe using another ground in San Francisco, and Doug kind of like messed that one up. So and Golden Gate wasn't the only club, as far as I know. I'm not going to out anybody. I just know Golden Gate was the most vocal about it. I can imagine that if Golden Gate was asked, and people asked why there's no New York club, and why there's no Boston club, that people were approached and said, "Hey, do you want to be a part of this?" And they said no. So that's my opinion.
I also think there's a possibility we'll have more comers once things are established, and assuming that the league is successful, we can. Well, there's always expansion, Doesn't hurt anything.
Yeah.
All right. So, Aggie Rugger 2010, friend of the show and one of the regular contributors to Reddit, one of our mods actually, wanted to know, when do you guys think the official announcement for MLR will come about? When will that be released?
God almighty, that's a really good question. And best guess now, seriously, like now, mid to late September, based on recent interactions we had with league officials. But seriously, but this is entirely speculation, obviously, on our part. We were hearing August 15 a long time ago, and nothing came about. So I don't even I'm telling you, mid to late September. But sometimes I don't even believe that myself. But that's my best guess, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, well, something came about, and that was the Austin Elite announcement and Seattle Seawolves getting active on their social media. But that was, I mean, we thought it was going to be the big boom, and it was. I mean, it was still a boom, but it wasn't the big boom.
Next up, we got the Sneaky Worm, and he wants to know, he or she, do we know anything about the corporate structure of MLR, what that's going to look like? And I guess I just jump in real quick and say he did some digging around on LinkedIn, and he did find a few names. Some of them we've heard before. Dean Howes as commissioner, Nick Benson, friend of the show, as deputy commissioner, Adrian Balfour as director of governors, and Edward Pelton as marketing manager. Aaron, what else have you heard?
Yeah, so all those four, I mean, I'm tracking Dean Howes, commissioner, Nick Benson, deputy commissioner, Adrian Balfour. He's the managing partner and CEO for Seattle Seawolves. So my best guess is all the managing partners for and CEOs for these organizations will sit on the board of governors, similar to how the NBA has a lot of minority owners, but you have like the managing partner of each organization sits on the NBA board of governors. So something similar to that. In addition to, a marketing manager at the league office, they also have their own marketing firm, which we've talked about, Rugby United Marketing, run by Diana Anderson out of Infinity Park. They've taken a lot of the best practices from other sports leagues that have been successful in the United States and put them together. I suspect as this thing gets going, the league office will expand.
And rounding us out tonight, Flash Gordon wants to know, when does success become judged by the quality of play rather than just product on the field? And I'm not really following this question. Aaron, do you have some thoughts on that one?
Well, I've said from the very beginning that I think if this is done the right way, in which so far we're seeing it done the right way mostly, with actually getting information out, because pro said that you didn't really know much about pro until the players were in camp, which was 5 weeks before the start of the season, whereas the start of the season for the most part is thought to be next March or April. So we're still 5 months out from that. No, 6 months out from that period. 7. Jeez, my math sucks today. But 7 months out from that period in time, and we're hearing tons of stuff. So if just information and having a product on the field is considered success, I think with who is on the coaching staff so far, we're going to have a better product very early on, because the players will be in camp before Christmas. They'll break. The non-internationals that are the guys that aren't competing in the ARC and other competitions will still be in camp. They'll be playing preseason matchups during the ARC window. So I think, they're just going to have that chemistry, and they're going to be better very fast. So, 4 games is better than pro. That's what I think. What about you, Victor, man?
Well, bro, to echo what you just said, Aaron, let's put it like this. If the league lasts more than a year, then in itself is success for me. But I believe that it will be judged by its quality of play with the players that come through the league and the performances of the U.S. Eagles. So hopefully with this new league, as time progresses, the more players that we get to the national side, and of course, if they become a lot more competitive in itself because of this new league, I think in itself that's a success as well. So I see it that way personally.
Yeah, as far as that stuff's concerned, I think that's what we got. Well, it looks like no one's catching us on errors on the broadcast. So, well, Victor, what did you eat for dinner?
Well, brother, I had hopefully I don't know if you guys know about Dominican food. I got something called moro de guandules, which is rice with pigeon peas stewed in a well, not really a cauldron, not really a cauldron, like in a pot, I guess. And so I had that and some goat meat with a little bit of, like a little piece of avocado next to it and some salad. So it was really good.
Yeah, I mean, I love island food, so.
Ah, they're beautiful. That's great. So yeah, that's what I have for eating. Sounds really good.
So are we starting a new feature where we just discuss dinners at the end of the show to make everybody hungry?
Corey, before we hit the broadcast, saw me making green chili burgers, so that's what I'm eating tonight. So I'll go grill those after we're done, and then I think we're all going to hit Game of Thrones after this. So.
Yeah, okay. I've got a pot roast sitting in the crock pot waiting for me, so I'm going to do that, and yeah, it's going to be epic tonight. Yeah, yes. Game of Thrones. Heck yeah, guys.
All right, so that's
well, guys. I'm going to be hitting Rick and Morty later myself. So,
right, so
for you guys.
That's all for me. Go Eagles! Let the boys play.
Definitely, let's go play. And by the way, now I see your all black shirt, bro. Let me tell you, that
it's a congratulations to the Black Ferns for going out there and winning the Women's Rugby World Cup. If you haven't had a chance to see that, I'm sure it'll be up on YouTube in next day or two.
No, it is right now. It is right now.
Oh, really? Nice. So if you haven't had a chance, it's apparently up on YouTube. Go watch that match. It was a great crescendo to end the Women's Rugby World Cup on. So that's just, salute to the women on the Black Ferns side. So
definitely. And let me tell you, that U.S. Eagles game with France, I mean, even though the girls lost.
Oh, wow, yeah. Our women went out there and they repped the jersey hard. So
yeah, seriously.
Seriously. They left everything. They left everything on the field. They left everything on the field. Now it's just up to the union to provide the support for them to play at a higher level, because it's really hard to play at a really high level if you play 3 1/3 tests a year. So that's all for me.
Yeah, definitely. I do agree. But yeah, bro, that backline that we have of Thomas, Napper, and Emba, let me tell you, those 3 girls. I saw that backline. I said, of course you're going to have the black girls, like all 3 in the back, because like they're the best. Of course, Tapper. Just be Tapper, not Napper. Tapper. Yeah, of course you're going to have the black girls in the back, because like the fastest and the strongest, of course. And I don't say that because I'm brown. It's because it's true, okay? Just want to make that clear.
Yeah. So. All right, Corey, what do you got?
Connect with Earful of Dirt anytime. We're on Facebook and Twitter as Earful of Dirt. You can email us at earfulofdirt@gmail.com or call and leave us a voicemail at 720-600-2679. Until next time, for Aaron, Dan, and Victor, I'm Corey. Thanks for joining us.